In 11.1, starting on page 720 of your textbook, we are going to be discussing the areas of triangles and parallelograms. So first I'm going to talk about the area of a square and the area of a rectangle. Those fall under the category of parallelograms. They are both specific parallelograms. So the area of a square is s squared. So that means you're going to be taking the side length times itself again and getting s squared, whatever the value is. So let's go ahead and say the value of this side length right here is 5 inches. That means the area is 5 squared. If I were to expand it, it would be 5 times 5, which is 25, and the units for area will be squared. So area equals 25 inches squared. Now the formula for a rectangle is base times height. So BH, base times height. A square is a rectangle, so if you want to think of the area of a square as base times height, that is fine, but your base is s and your height is also s, so it just so happens that your base and height are the same. That's the only difference between a square and a rectangle, really, is that all the sides are the same for a square, whereas a rectangle, they're different. So a base, let's go ahead and say this is 17, and my height is 10 centimeters. So what I need to do is multiply those. Base times height, and that gives me 170 centimeters squared. As well as plugging in the bases and the heights and the sides, you need to be able to solve for a height given an area. So let's go ahead and say your area is equal to 350 feet squared, and your base is 70 feet. Your base is 70 feet, but we just don't know what the height is equal to. So that's 350 equals 70h. I need to divide each side by 70. And that means your height would come out to 5 feet. Alright, as it is a height, it should just be measured in feet, not feet squared. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the area of a parallelogram and a triangle. So a parallelogram is still going to have the same formula as a rectangle, base times height, because what we can do is we can chop this triangle off and insert it over on the right and actually make a rectangle out of a parallelogram. The one thing that might be different about these pictures that you might see and notice are the heights, maybe on the outside or the inside. It just depends. So here's an example. The height is 17 and the base is 30. So that means A equals 17 times 30, and the area will end up being 510 units squared. You also may be asked to find the perimeter. So by finding the perimeter, let's say I give you this side. That means the opposite sides are going to be the same. So this is 30 and this is 20 as well. If I ask you to find the perimeter, you're just adding all the sides. 20 plus 30 plus 20 plus 30. So your perimeter would equal 100 units. Alright, and last but certainly not least, the area of a triangle. How do we get triangles? Well, if I have a rectangle and I chop it in half, that gives me a triangle, so that's where the 1/2 comes from. So if I were given, let's see, my base here, let's go ahead and say that I actually don't know it. Maybe I don't know the base, but I do know that, let me go ahead and redraw this with a right angle right there. I do know that this side is 5 and the hypotenuse is 13. Well, how can I find the base? So I need to find the base in order to find the area. I'm going to go ahead and use the Pythagorean theorem. B squared plus 5 squared equals 13 squared. Working all of that out, you would get B to equal 12. So then into our formula, we can do 1/2 12 times 5. 12 times 5 is 60. So that means 1/2 of 60. And that would give me 30 units squared. So you have to be careful with what pieces of information they give you. They might not always give you what you need for the formula, but they will certainly give you enough information to find what you need. Okay, I want to work through one last example. So this one will be a little bit of a word problem. It states, this is example 2 on page 722, the base of a triangle, is twice its height. So the base is twice its height. And the height I'm just going to mark as h. So I know that this is a triangle, so I'll probably be dealing with the area equals 1/2 base times height. And it says the area is 36 inches squared, or 36 square inches. A equals 36 inches squared. So, what does it want me to find? It says I need to find the base and the height. Well, if I plug this in, this information in right here, I'm still left with the b and an h. So that means I'm going to need to substitute 2h in for the base, since it said that the base was 2 times the height. So a equals 1/2 base times height. 36 equal to 1/2 base, which is 2h, and my height, which is h. So what's going to happen on the right side is, I'll just keep the 1/2 there for now. This is 2h squared. And then I can multiply the 1/2 times the 2. 36 equals h squared. So I need to take a square root. H equals 6. Which means that the height is 6 inches and the base is 12 inches. So if I multiply these out and put it into my formula for area, put a 12 in for the base and a 6 in, I will get 36 inches squared for my area, which checks out because 6 times 12 is 72, and if I chop that in half, it gives me 36 inches squared.